if I don't sign it, how much time do I have to prove that I can stay in? And he was like, well, you know Bo Jackson? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got the same injury as him. You don't play football anymore. I'm like, well, I'm not Bo Jackson, so.
We're rolling. What's up, Nelson?
What's up, Josh?
Thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just start off with introduce yourself, branch of service, years served, job did.
Awesome. My name's Nelson Coburn. I joined in 1998, the Marine Corps. I retired in September of 2020, so I did 22 years. Well, just shy of 22 years.
Yeah.
By 2 weeks. I was a mortarman, 0 through 41, and I joined from Oregon.
Wow, from Oregon?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Talk to me a little bit about where you're from and what your upbringing was like.
Okay, I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii, where I was born on Oahu. And then I stayed there growing up until I was about 12. Then I moved to Brooklyn, New York. I was there for a year in the 90s, early 90s. Brooklyn wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
And I was definitely culture shock going from Hawaii to New York. I got there in the winter, the first time I seen snow, a foot of snow.
Wow.
Life there was very different, but a good different. It was like a concrete jungle from like the island paradise I came from.
Yeah.
And then I was there for a little over a year, and then I went to Grants Pass, Oregon, where I finished up middle school and high school.
Wow. What was school like in Brooklyn, man? Because Brooklyn in the 90s was gangster as shit, wasn't it?
It was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
My first day there, I got jumped.
Oh.
I lived across the street from a pretty big project, and everyone was either black or Puerto Rican. So when I went to school, the Puerto Rican's like, what are you? So I was like, I'm Puerto Rican. I gotta survive out here, man. They're like, you don't speak any Spanish? I'm like, nah, man, my mom's white, you know? My mom was the only like white woman in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you what ethnicity are you?
I'm Hawaiian and on my dad's side, and then on my mother's side, I'm white from South Russia.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, man, Puerto Rican is believable, man. You're very tan.
Yeah, when I'm on the East Coast, everyone thinks I'm Puerto Rican, and when I'm on the West Coast, everyone thinks I'm Mexican. So.
Oh, shit.
So I grew up, my mother was a single mother. I didn't know who my father was growing up. She kind of told me that my father was some Arab guy, but she wasn't sure, come to find out. And then when I was older, about 4 years ago, I did Ancestry, found out my father, who he was. But he was in prison my whole life.
Wow.
And then he was recently murdered in prison about 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
But it was just a single mother. My mother was a lesbian growing up in Hawaii, so I never had a real male father figure at home growing up. It was just her and I, and whoever she was with. My mother had a way to make people want to fight her, so there was a lot of altercations growing up, a lot of alcohol, drugs. We moved, but before I moved from Hawaii when I was 12, I went to 12 different schools.
Whoa.
Moved probably about 20 times.
Wow.
But I always knew growing up that I wanted to join the Marines. In Hawaii, there's every branch of the service, and the Marines always stood out. They were just always squared away, respectful, opened the doors for my mom and I. And then I was able to go to a lot of the bases when I lived in Hawaii. So every time I went to Marine Corps base, it was spick and span, and guys were in shape, running, PTing.
Yeah.
So I just knew at an early age that's what I wanted to do. And if you look at any photos that I have from when I was younger, I was always in some type of Marine Corps hat, uniform, something. All my birthday cakes were Marines.
Oh, wow.
So I knew at a really young age that's something I wanted to accomplish in this life.
So backing up a little bit, your mom used to, you didn't know who your dad was growing up? She would just give you,
Well, she was with two different guys that were around the same time.
Oh, okay.
Once I did the Ancestor, I kind of asked her, like, hey, I found out the truth.
Yeah.
The ironic thing is I hung out with my dad's side of the family, all my uncles and aunts, cousins and nephews growing up, but my mom would drop me off and say, hey, just remember, this is your married into family, because she actually married my real father. But she didn't know. She just knew that it was one of the two. They got married, then he went off to jail soon thereafter. So then growing up, the rest of the time, she's like, hey, it was the other guy. And And I never really questioned it. Didn't really matter. It was just her and I anyways.
Yeah.
Either guy was in our lives. So for me, it didn't really matter.
Do you know why you went to jail?
Oh, he did all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time he went to jail, he had got out after probably like 30 years, I think. And then he was working a job. The guy didn't want to pay him the money that he was supposed to get. And then the contractor was talking crap to my father. So he pulled him out, started beating him up, hopped in the guy's truck and ran him over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he went to jail for attempted murder.
Wow. And then he ended up dying in prison.
Yeah, he was murdered by a guy that got in there, and they got into an altercation, and then he died from that altercation.
Did you ever go visit him while he was in prison when you found out he was your dad?
Before I left the island, my grandmother, she would take me to go visit him. And then about 4 years ago, he reached out when he got out, and like 2 years before COVID. And then I would go home every chance I get, and we started reconnecting and hanging out whenever I was back on the island.
Going in, did you know what you wanted to do in the Marines?
I wanted to be an infantryman, and I went open contract infantry, and then they chose it at SOI for me. I didn't even know what a mortarman was. They said, I said, Sergeant, you said I'm an 0341 mortarman. What is that? He's like, you know those little green plastic toys that soldiers that you play with? I'm like, yeah. He's like, the one that you don't play with, you don't know what the hell they do?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's what you're going to do.
Well, how was your first enlistment? Do you recall that first 4 years?
Yeah, it was awesome. Many of the guys that I served with on that first tour, we're still in contact today. Some of them have passed. But I would say there was 16 of us that all went to boot camp at the same time in Fox Company. We all went to SOI together, and then we all became mortarmen together, and then we all got sent to 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, 81's platoon together. And we did most of us did our first enlistment together. I left them after 2 years. Some other stuff came up, but we were tight. We were really tight.
Yeah. Did you do any pumps that first 4 years?
I did one. I went to, I was with 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines. I moved from 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines to 3rd Battalion, Kilo Company. I was with 3rd Platoon, and we deployed to Kabul, Afghanistan with Task Force Kilo to reinforce the embassy security when it was reopened. And that was interesting.
Yeah, what talk to me about that. What was interesting about it?
We were company minus, and we're in the middle of the city. Our closest support was Jalalabad, which is about an hour and a half away from us, 45 minutes, hour and a half, depending on traffic. And we're in the middle of Kabul, so the city is like a big bowl, fish bowl, and everything around us was elevated. And we didn't have really any armored vehicles. We had barely. I don't even think we had mortars. We had barely some crew serves, some medium, heavy machine gunnery, and that's it. I ran the entry control point. We had 3 platoons. We ran shifts. We got shot at sporadically, indirect fire, mortars and rockets. But for the most part, we didn't get any direct contact. I think they're just trying to still figure out what was going to happen with us being there.
So after your first 4 years, obviously you re-enlisted. Did you re-enlist because you were enjoying the lifestyle, or you didn't know what you wanted to do? What made you make that decision?
Honestly, I asked to go to the West Coast. I was dating someone. I was trying to get back to her. And the Marine Corps said, no, we want you to stay on the East Coast. Go to. I just got back from Kabul, and they wanted us to go to Okinawa. My unit was going to Okinawa, but I was trying to get orders to the West Coast, and they said, no, you got to do this deployment, and then when you get back, then you can go. Then I said, well, I'll get out. And the sergeant major's like, well, you're about to get recalled if you get out. We're about to recall everyone. We're going to invade Iraq. And I heard the talks of generals in Kabul while they're sitting outside smoking cigars when I was doing my patrols outside of the embassy. So I knew we were going, but I just wanted to be on the West Coast. So I said, I'll get out. Sergeant major's like, good, get the hell out. So I was like, all right. So I was planning to get out. I literally had a going away party with my platoon. They gave me a little statue. I had my Penske truck set up. All my belongings were in there. I had my car on a trailer ready to go. And I'm driving off, and then the career planner comes running out. Sergeant comes running out. He's like, "Hey, Coburn." I see him in my rear view, and I pull over. I'm like, "What's up, Sergeant?" He's like, I got your re-enlistment, everything you want. You're gonna go to the West Coast. You're gonna be an instructor for 1st FSSG, teach infantry tactics to Marines that aren't in the infantry. And he's like, you're driving out west right now, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got 30 days leave. You got a bonus of like 5 G's. I think I got like 2.5, 3 G's or something. So he's like, you want to go? And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So I signed and I just drove off and drove to the West Coast.
Holy shit, dude. On your way out,
I was on my way out. I already had my D-214. I took care of all my admin. Everything was done.
That's wild, man. Yeah. What were you planning to do if he didn't run out? Like, what was your next?
Honestly, I was moving out west to go to school. Yeah. I initially wanted to go to school and played sports. Played football, and I was going to go to college to play football. Had a gun accident that stopped me from going on that journey. And so I found myself doing my 4 years, and then I was like, well, I'll just go back, get out, and go to school.
What rank did you get up to after that first enlistment?
So I got NJP'd from corporal to lance corporal in 28 days. I picked up corporal for 28 days, and I got NJP'd back to lance corporal. And then in my 3rd year, I picked up corporal. So I picked up corporal my first time on my 2nd year, and then I picked up corporal again on my 3rd year, and then I picked up sergeant on my 4th year. So as I was leaving on leave to that next unit, I picked up on leave. So when I
sergeant,
in,
you got sergeant.
Yes.
So you got NJ fucking P twice and busted down twice, but still got.
I got busted down once.
Oh, you got busted down once.
Yeah.
But NJP twice.
But I got NJP on my 2nd year.
Oh.
Or right after the 1st year.
What was that? You want to talk about what you got NJP'd for?
Yep. My mother was not doing well. She was sick. I had got 2 Red Cross messages. We were training in Fort AP Hill in Virginia, doing combined training with artillery. I was becoming the squad leader for Fort Observers. I was training to take that role. We're getting ready to go on a MEU to the Mediterranean. And then I had got a 3rd Red Cross message, but I was pretty upset. And the night that they got the 3rd Red Cross message, it was during the elections, and there was like a little PX, and it was open all night. So I was there, and then my ex-wife came down. We were dating at the time. She was doing an internship up in Virginia. So she came on base, and we hung out, and then until about 04, we were making movement down south back to Lejeune at 06. And when I went back to my platoon at 04, everyone was awake. It was kind of odd. So when I walked in, I was like, what's going on? And then everyone was like staring at me. They're like, oh, you got a 3rd Red Cross message, and everyone's been looking for you all night. We were out in the field, like online, looking for you all night. And I was like, damn. So I had to go talk to the 1st sergeant. First, I went to talk to my company gunny, and he just yelled at me. But I told my sergeant where I was going. But I'm assuming, obviously, he didn't say anything of where I was. And he had been NJP twice, and he has meritorious promoted back to sergeant. So when they started asking me, like, hey, where were you? We heard that, you told Sergeant so-and-so. We'll let you off the hook if you say that you told them where you're at. But I knew they were just trying to get back at him. So I was like, I didn't say anything.
Kept your mouth shut.
Yeah, I did, and they charged me UA.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty petty.
Yeah.
Wow.
But at that point, I mean, we had been in trouble. I had been in trouble once before. That's a pretty funny story. We're all drinking in the barracks like good young lance corporals. Yeah. And one of the TVs that we would watch, big old boob tube TV we would watch, went out on us during one of the Sunday night games. So we brought another TV in, and one of the Marines there's like 8 of us in there drinking, and one of them was like, hey, I bet you won't throw that TV off the 2nd deck. So we watch all the games, and I'm like, I'm going to sleep. This guy's not going to throw the TV, because we were egging him on all night. So I go in my room, and I get a knock on the door. I'm like, hey, he's going to throw it. He's going to throw it. So I run up. I grab one of those old flash cameras. I'm winding it up. I'm running. And he's at the edge getting ready to throw it over. I'm like, wait. I'm like, let's go to the 3rd deck. So we go to the 3rd deck. And back then, 81s, or Weapons Company was on one side, and we had Echo Company on the other side of the barracks. So when we get to the top, I was like, hey, don't throw it on this side. Let's go throw it on Echo's side. So that was, so someone says something, they're gonna be asking those guys, right? So we go on the other side. He goes to throw it. I take a photo. It hits. We all run back to our rooms and we act like we're going back to sleep. Found out later that we ended up throwing it on the duty side where the duty room is. So when it hit the ground, it blew up. Like it was a loud bang.
Oh shit.
So the duty hit the deck. He grabbed the phone. He dialed, the regimental duty said we're under attack.
Oh shit.
So SRT and everything, like it got crazy at the barracks.
Oh man.
They started knocking on everyone's door, and then the next morning, Echo Company, they interrogated all their Marines, and they said it wasn't us. So I'm assuming someone smarter than I at the time was like, they probably threw it on the opposite side so they wouldn't get blamed. So someone ratted us all out, and we ended up having to go to CCU, Correctional Custody Unit, and it was called a deterrent, where you go there for a day. And so the way the day started was at 05, we ran to the company office. We met the first sergeant. 4 of them were in there. They had some other kids that were going. There was 5 of us that we had to go from my platoon that were part of it. And they said, hey, run to where the gym is at the Circle in Lejeune. That's where CCU was. Mm-hmm. So they followed us in the van. We ran over there. As soon as we got there, they started yelling. These Lance Corporals started yelling at us. They kind of brought you back into boot camp. Mm-hmm. So we picked up a 50-pound pack, a rubber rifle, and then we went on a ruck run for about 5 miles, hit the O course about 10 times, got a cap full of water, literally a cap full of water, then ran back to 5 miles. Then we did rifle IT for an hour, pack IT for an hour, flutter kicks, 100 flutter kicks, and then we did log PT for an hour, and then we broke rocks for an hour. By then the day was winding down, the sun was going down. They got us back in the classroom. And the whole time, the first sergeants are yelling at us, driving and behind, next to us, yelling out the window, if you fall out or you quit, we're gonna NJP you. So this was kind of like our deterrent to conform. Rather than doing paperwork, they would just wear us out.
Yeah.
So not many guys finished that day. Long course, a lot of Marines quit. Ironically, the 5 of us from 81s, we did it. And they got us in the classroom at the end of the day, and they said, hey, we have a month where you can stay here if you feel like you need more help to correct your attitudes and your disobedience and whatnot. Any of you want to stay here for another month? And no one said anything. They're like, good. And it was funny because they were like left hand, left knee, right hand. We're right back to boot camp fast. And it had been a couple of years, so it was pretty funny. And then we left there, ran back, but that was it.
Wow.
They didn't do any paperwork or anything.
So what about the guys that quit? Did they get NJP?
They all got NJP'd.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Back then, paperwork was the last resort. I had a platoon commander said, we did something else. We were going to get a page 11. The gunny wanted us to get a page 11. The platoon commander's like, absolutely not. We're going to the field for a month. We got them. We get to the field, and all we did was dig holes for a month. It was just horrible. My hands were bleeding all day.
Wow.
And he would come by and he's like, you can stop digging the hole. I just give you your page 11. But we're like, no, we'll just keep digging. So.
Wow. So now you said, back then paperwork was the last resort. Did things eventually change? Is paperwork the first resort now? Or what you just described, this whole story right here, would that be considered hazing today?
Yeah, I think it changed. Hazing came big, and I got a good story on hazing. So I was going with 3-8 to Kabul, and there's some, I had just checked, I wasn't in 3-8 that long. I was a general's driver as a second award Lance Corporal, and asked him to go to a deploying unit to combat. So he sent me to 3-8, and I guess a bunch of kids were, those ab electric shock things? Mm-hmm. They're putting on Marines' faces during field day and making them drink, and then shocking the crap out of them. So one of the Marines went UA, wrote his mother hit the congressman up, and one of the guys that was being accused was an NCO, and we were flying to Kabul on a C-130 from Bahrain, and we landed in the outgoing unit. CO talked to our CO, left him on the plane, 5 NCOs on the plane, and they all went back, got court-martialed, and processed out for hazing.
Oh, wow.
I would say around 2001-2 is when hazing started becoming, the pinning of the breast insignia, and all that just started getting out of control. There really was no left and right lateral limits on it.
Yeah.
So then they just cut it all out and just started doing more paperwork.
I remember going through that. Every time you got promoted, you weren't allowed to put the backings on your chevrons
Right.
for the whole day. And then you just got fucking pounded all day.
Yeah, there's no blood striping anymore. There's none of that anymore. It's just, there's no, people just take it too far.
Yeah.
You know, and there's not a doctrine on it. There's not a limit to what you
Right.
can and can't do on it.
Right.
So then it just gets out of hand, and then we start adding alcohol to it. It just gets bad.
Yeah. Wow. So, man, 22 years in the Corps, I mean, you could fucking sit here and tell stories for hours. So, you know, what was your favorite assignment during those years?
Honestly, they all had its, like my first 4 years for me as a new Marine is like your very forming years. Being in Lejeune, I was glad I was in Lejeune because back then Lejeune was pretty tight. You know, you weren't walking around with a nasty uniform, or you're not gonna PT and like jog. You're running, like it was just hard, and I enjoyed that. And being in the field there, everything's alive, so it's miserable in the field. So after going in the field in Lejeune, everything after that was, you know, pleasurable.
Yeah.
Especially coming out to California or Hawaii. But every different job challenged me in different ways. And as I grew in the Marine Corps and rank, I developed and I changed. And then, so I had pros and cons to all the assignments. They all had their challenges. I think the most recent one is where I retired. I enjoyed a lot going back to the drill field as a first sergeant. My goal when I went back was to try to be the best first sergeant I could be for those Marines. When I was a drill instructor, we had like a 90+ divorce rate. I got divorced. And I just thought, how stupid is it that we're asking these Marines to work 20-hour days plus 90 days in a row, but yet we're not going to take care of them and their families.
Yeah.
So my goal was to do that.
So you mean the divorce rate, meaning the Marines that were drill instructors were getting divorced because of how much they were working?
And so every class, when you left the depot, if you made it a successful tour, the ladies that you were checking out with, they would say, oh, you know, your class, whatever, 3-TAC-06, yeah, your divorce rate was like 96% or 98%. I want to say we started with the 33 drill instructors, and I want to say about 15 left successfully. The rest got RFC'd or court-martialed and processed out.
Wow.
And then those who made it, we were still at like a 98% divorce rate.
Wow. That's crazy. When you went into the drill field, were you single? Did you have a girlfriend?
No, when I went the first time, I was married. We had been married for a couple years, dating for about 4 or 5, or we're together for about 4 or 5 total. But I don't blame the drill field for us splitting apart. I think we were young when we got married, and so we got married when I came back from Afghanistan. I moved out west, and then I checked into the unit. I shattered my hip, and then a year later, it's like 14 months after I got to the West Coast, I was going to Iraq for OIF2. And then I was there for 7 months. I came back for a month, and then I volunteered to go back for another 6 months. I was doing personal security for a general at the time, and I enjoyed the job because we got to go everywhere and see everything. Given I wasn't kicking doors in, but my assignment was to a non-infantry unit. So that was like the closest thing I could get to. And we got a lot of benefits running around with the general too, so can't complain about that.
Wow. How did you shatter your hip?
I was teaching I was at combat skills training school, and that school was there to help FSSG units getting ready for deployment. So, you know, infantry tactics, land nav, patrolling, rear security. So we had a culminating event. I infiltrated their camp, and I got tackled by 3 Marines, dislocated my leg, shattered the back of my hip socket. And then I had to have surgery at the old hospital on Pendleton, but the doctor was like, this is complicated surgery. I haven't done anything like this before. So you can let me do it, or you can wait for an ambulance for like 5-6 hours to take you down to Balboa. And I was like, I'll wait. But before he did that, he didn't. When I came into the hospital, he didn't take any X-rays, and he told everyone, "Oh, I just have a dislocated leg." So he tried to put it back in, and he just grinding bone on bone, and I was screaming bloody murder. They put me under, but I was still screaming being under, from what I was told. So he sent me to X-ray, came back, and I started coming to from being under, and I saw two corpsmen drilling a rod through my knee, and they're like, oh, looking at it, they're like, oh, it's the wrong angle. And then the other corpsman's like, hey, undrill it out and re-drill it straight. Ooh. So I was trying to speak, and finally I could speak, and I told him, hey, stop, go get the doctor. The doctor came out, and I'm like, why are they drilling a hole through my knee? A rod through my knee? I have a hip injury, not a knee injury. And he's like, well, we got to put you in traction to separate your ball joint from your hip socket so we can get in there and do some work. And I'm like, well, can't you just, throw a band around my knee? And he's like, no, it's more stable when it's through your knee, and we throw some fishing line and weights off the rack, and it'll pull that leg joint away from the socket.
Shit.
Yeah.
God damn,
so
man.
I went to surgery. I woke up the next day, and then the doctor came in and said it was a great surgery. I have 48 staples and 2 plates and like 4 screws. And then he was, hey, here's some paperwork I need you to sign. I'm on morphine drip at the time. And he's like, I'm like, well, what is this document for? What am I signing? He's like, it's your med board. We're going to process you out. And I had just re-enlisted, been only on the West Coast for like 3-4 months. We were getting ready to go to the invasion of Iraq. And I was like, well, if I don't sign it, how much time do I have to prove that I can stay in? And he was like, well, you know Bo Jackson? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got the same injury as him. You don't play football anymore. I'm like, well, I'm not Bo Jackson, so what is it that I have to do? He's like, you have to take a physical fitness test. I'm like, okay, what do I have to score? He's like, you just got to pass. And I'm like, how much time do I get? He's like, the max time is 6 months. So I just threw the paper away. He's like, well, I'll see you in 6 months. And then 6 months later, I took the PFT. I got a 279, and that's the lowest I ever got in the Marine Corps.
Fucking 279 is higher than probably half the fucking Marine Corps, dude. You know what I mean? That's a fucking great PFT score. Yeah. Damn, that's hardcore. I'm curious about if you have any stories from being a drill instructor in the drill field with maybe recruits, or maybe some behind the scenes shit that, I probably don't even know about,
There's tons of stories. There's no statute of limitations on these stories, especially if you're retired and you're collecting pay.
I gotcha.
So let me think of some funny things. Well, I can tell you when I was a recruit, I can tell you some of those stories.
Okay.
I thought I was pretty tough. I wouldn't say I was the toughest, but I came there with the mindset that I'm going to get work. So I trained pretty hard in Oregon, running a lot, preparing to go. And when I got there, once I figured out they couldn't hit us, like really hit you, like beat you, I was like, well, this is going to be easy. My mom beats me, on a regular, so this won't be too hard. And then all they could do is IT me, and I took IT as we didn't have gym sessions. We had PT sessions, but there was really that was it for the day.
Right.
And there wasn't a lot of upper body. Most of that was lower body exercises. So I took that as a challenge. So I was always getting in trouble. My rack mate and I on the first day got in a fight, this big redhead. He wasn't cleaning something, and I said, hey, you need to start cleaning the window instead of looking out of it. And he's like, what are you going to do about it? So we just started swinging on each other. So they moved us to the very first rack by the front post, and we were rack mates. And we just got ate up because we would never help each other. And finally, at the first month in, we're just getting IT all the time. As soon as the lights come on, the drill instructor's like us two right to the quarterdeck. So one day I said, look, man, I don't like you, you don't like me, I get it. But we need to figure this out, or else we're not going to make it. This is not going to, you and I are not going to make it this. So he's like, all right. So after that, we were done with everything all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought for a minute there, one of us would be a squaller, but both of us were pretty shitheads. So the senior drill instructor got pissed off because the drill instructors in my opinion, couldn't break me, ITing me. I would sing songs when I was getting IT'd, so they told me I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
But the senior drill instructor was like, look, I know how to break you, Coburn. I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, you're going to have 2 hours of fire watch from 12 to 02 for the last half of boot camp. At first, it didn't really bug me, but then when we got up north for the Crucible, I asked permission to not have that much fire watch during the crucible. And he's like, no, I told you from now to graduation, if you make it, you're doing 2 hours of fire watch.
Wow.
So my mom came to see us. We used to have visitors Thursday and have like a little dinner. And we'd march out to see our parents for like an hour or something. And I have those photos where I just got big old black eyes from like not sleeping.
Damn.
Just sleep deprived. It didn't break me though.
Yeah.
Didn't break me.
So when you were I think it's when you're a gunnery sergeant and you're moving up to that next rank, you get the option to go to first sergeant or master sergeant, right?
Yes.
And how come you chose first sergeant?
I was in the infantry, and to be quite honest, I felt like I kind of did a little bit of everything in the infantry. The only thing I didn't really spend some time doing was being a cat section. But I was a Sniper Platoon Sergeant as a gunner sergeant, and I did a deployment with them, and mortarman, and then I was with a line company. So I feel like I got the feel of being in the infantry. And a mass sergeant, I would just continue doing the same thing, but then I'd be the senior enlisted expert, the SME for the infantry. And though there's a lot of credibility and that's a job that's needed, I wanted to do other things. And being a first sergeant, I felt it would give me more opportunities to do other things, to challenge myself in different settings. So that's why I put F. And then I got promoted to first sergeant in Moscow, Russia. I was a detachment commander out there from 13 to 14. And I was glad I was on MSG duty. I was in Port-au-Prince, Haiti from 12 to 13. And that really transitioned my personality from being just a basic infantry guy, yelling at people. You can be a certain way in the infantry that doesn't necessarily transcend to all of the Marine Corps. Certain personalities and traits work better in other settings. And being the senior guy in these countries, talking to dignitaries and other generals and ambassadors, really and then the way I approached my Marines, I really had to adjust my leadership style and my tact. That for the lack of a better term, I don't think I really had a lot of tact. It was just more demands and barking orders. So it really developed me, being out on MSG.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people want to do MSG duty, right? It's very popular.
Well, it's popular with the younger guys. A lot of them don't like their MOSs. I had a lot of guys from the wing, and especially from the wing in Okinawa, and they didn't want to do their job out there anymore. So, MSG is a way to get out of it. And then a lot of them want to transition out afterwards. So they'll go on MSG duty to do school to help them transition, which is great. And then they get to see a lot of part of the world before they get out on the Marine Corps dime. So the challenge that I had was finding these Marines who already had the mindset to come on this program to transition out, to keep them motivated to stay in the fight of the Marine Corps' mission, not just their personal mission. And I just told them, I said, we can have a fine balance, but the Marine Corps has to come first. That's why you're here.
Right.
All your other things that you're trying to do for yourself, I will help and support that as long as you take care of the mission first. I'll follow up with all those other things for you. But yeah, MSG was great.
What was it like being in charge of a sniper platoon?
Oh man, it was chaos.
Yeah.
I volunteered for that duty. I don't think I was deserving of it, but the higher did, and I was fortunate enough to be able to. I got a DUI a year and a half prior to taking the platoon. I left the drill field, checked into K-Bay to 1-3, and my first weekend I got a DUI, and so I thought my career was done. I actually got passed over twice. I was on my way out, but I did well in the first deployment, and I asked the sergeant major if I beat the rap out in town, would they be willing to set the NJP aside? And not many Marines know what that is. It's a setting aside letter. The CO who gave you the NJP or the CO who replaces him at that unit can remove it or submit a letter to set it aside based off the new circumstances, administrative oversight. But I did all that research on my own, and I asked for it, did a good job on the deployment, on the first deployment, 1-3 came back. I beat the rap out in town, and then they gave me the setting aside letter. But that was the beginning of my journey to remove all the fitness reports and submit for a remedial package while in Afghanistan for gunner sergeant. and luckily I won, and they backdated it 2 years back, and I didn't get kicked out because I would have got forced out coming back from that second deployment from Afghanistan with 1-3.
Wow. Wow.
But that sniper platoon, so I got the sniper platoon. Back to your original question, I was like, I'm gonna get the smartest, fastest, strongest, best guys in the battalion. This will be a cakewalk, easy. Man, those guys are a pain in my ass. The average GT score was like a 135. The highest is 155. I think I was the lowest GT score in the platoon, and I was a platoon sergeant. They asked why about everything. Like, I was just so used to being direct and just do this, and they're like, why? Because I told you so. That's why. Luckily, my chief scout, Jonesy, pulled me off to the side. The chief scout is the more senior sniper in the platoon. At the time, we were both staff sergeants, and he pulled me off to the side. He's like, look, man, he's like, these Marines are going to ask you a lot of questions because they're really smart. They're not trying to, second guess your authority or why you're asking them to do anything. But the more information you give them, the better they can execute on what you are asking them to do to accomplish that mission. He's like, so don't take it personal. They're not asking you to make you think that you're not valid. They're asking you because they want as much information so they can build how they're going to execute that mission. He's like, so just give them everything and then let them go do it, and they'll be fine. And I was grateful for that mentorship. But with him and my platoon commander, they didn't get along, so they're always fighting. So I had to, keep them at bay. But the sniper, it was challenging, and I stayed in as long as I did because the Marine Corps challenged me emotionally, mentally, physically. I had to adapt. I couldn't just get comfortable in one way of doing business. I had to adapt. And I loved all those different challenges. I don't think there's many jobs out of the military that will constantly keep you evolving. You get into a job, whatever it is, a desk job or whatever kind of job, and once you master it, that's it. Now you got to find outside things to do with your time to continue challenging you in other areas.
Yeah. And
the Marine Corps just constantly threw so many different things at me at all the times.
Right.
And I felt like, I don't know, I wouldn't say I thrived, but I enjoyed the challenges. And those snipers challenged me every day. But I was grateful to be their platoon sergeant and support them on their mission. We brought everybody home. We lost some gear, but no fault of our own. Flew out of an Osprey, but that's a whole different. Comm gear went out the back.
Oh,
that
shit.
was a shit show too. But yeah, I enjoyed them tremendously. I learned a lot and I grew a lot because of them.
Wow. So what was that feeling of retirement like for you when it came down to retiring after all these years?
Well, I felt I needed the Marine Corps definitely more than they needed me, and I'll never say that any other way than that way. I got in a lot of trouble in the Marine Corps. The fact that I could retire at all, let alone to be a first sergeant, that's a blessing. I pretty much in every rank had some type of jeopardy, and I'd have to learn from it. And my leaders held me accountable and put me back in the fight, and I was able to adapt. And then I would step on my sword again, and then I'd have to do it again. So at the end of the road, I was disappointed. Everyone always wants to get to the top of their game or the industry, and for me that was becoming a sergeant major. But against my peer group with all the adversity, there was no way I was going to get there. But I wanted to be able to say I fought all the way to the end, and at least that way, if the Marine Corps did push me out, it wasn't for me giving up on myself or doing the job to the best of my abilities.
Yeah.
There were just guys better than me
Right.
that were more deserving. So that kind of hit home, not getting selected, and then pretty much getting told you got to get out. But I kind of saw the writing on the wall early. I like to plan things out kind of a couple years out. And I knew that was more likely of a possibility for my future. So I just wanted to run all the way to the end, the same way I came running into the Marine Corps with my head held up high. And I started planning the transition about 2 years out. There was a couple things that I was thinking about doing, but I think real estate really was what I thought before I started doing it was something I might be passionate about. I love taking care of people and their families, and I'm able to I thought I'd be able to do that by doing that job. So I just started focusing on transitioning before I even knew that I was going to get forced out.
Yeah. And now you have a whole real estate team full of fucking Marines, right?
Yeah.
That's fucking...
Marines and then spouses of Marines.
Wow, that's awesome.
And we help 99% of our business are veterans and their families. And I have it fills a large gap in my soul to be able to give back to them and their families and continue what I was doing differently. The mission's still the same, right? Just not the Marine Corps mission, go win wars, but, you know, take care of our people.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that they're still fighting for us. So I'm humbled by that. Got a great team that I'm surrounded with, that I work with, and I'm blessed to have them with me. And they continue to challenge me. I got some heavy hitters on the team, so they keep me on my toes and on my game. And I don't think I would say I developed something outside of the Marine Corps that's similar to the Marine Corps. I think I just repurposed the tools that I had in the Marine Corps, and I'm using them in a different way.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things that I learned transitioned out for me easily, from my opinion. You just got to be able to be adaptable and see the tools that you did gain and how can you reapply them into the civilian world.
So earlier you mentioned that you were divorced. Did you ever remarry?
Absolutely. When I left the drill field in 2009, I got orders to 1-3, and when I got there, I met my current wife. I had been hitting her up, believe it or not, on social media. It wasn't really, it was hot or not, and she wouldn't talk to me for like 6 months, and then finally she gave me her number and we started talking, and then we planned to meet, and that night we met. We've been together ever since.
Wow.
So that was 2009. We got married. In order for us, the way I asked her to marry me, and she's probably not gonna like that, I'm putting this out there, but it's the truth. I got orders to MSG, and if you're not married, obviously your significant other can't come with you. And me being an infantry guy, it is likely I was going to go to some pretty austere countries because there's, you know, not many staff and SEALs are not married. So I asked her, I said, hey, I don't necessarily feel we need to rush to get married. I'm enjoying our time together. We've been together for a couple of years now. But where I'm going, you can't come with me if we're not married. So she was like, well, are you asking me to marry me? I'm like, well, yeah, essentially if we don't get married, then this is it. And I don't want it to end. But again, like, I'm not trying to rush you to get married. And she's like, yeah, I'm down. So we got married in 2012, and we just hit our 10-year anniversary this year. And, you know, honestly, I was a mess after my first divorce. I was just all over the place, and then knowing I was going to combat, I just didn't care. My care for my personal wasn't where it should be. But having her in my life, and she came with me to Haiti, Russia, came back here with me, and I did 2 deployments to Guam. She came with me on one of them. But having her with me on that last half of my journey in the military really kept me grounded. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have made it all the way to the end for sure if she wasn't around. Wow. So I credit a lot of the things that I was going through with the Marine Corps. I was able to have a sounding board to talk through those things, and disappointments and frustrations, and, you know, people don't give enough credit to the person at home. We have our buddies all day at work, we're around, and a lot of those spouses are at home on their own. And then we come home and dump all the crap from our day onto them. But really, you know, what's in it for them, or what are they getting out of it, right? But they still stay there and persevere, and they keep the house together, and you know, keep us happy. And so I feel like the spouse has it harder majority of the time than the service member. We have it easy. We're surrounded by our brothers and sisters all day long. Most of them are alone taking care of kids and the family at home, and that's a lot of work. They have like 10 jobs. We got 1 job.
Yeah.
So I credit a lot of my success of where I'm at today because of her.
Awesome. Well, congrats, man.
Thanks.
10 years, you said? 10-year anniversary?
Yeah, we just hit our 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations. Yeah, no, that's a big deal. You know, I agree. Spouses get overlooked, you know, military spouses, and they play a huge role in keeping us straight, you know, and stable, and, you know, all the worry that they go through while we're overseas and everything that we're doing, and them not being in the know and not having all the information that they want to have, and us not being able to communicate back and forth like we want to. So yeah, that's a big deal, man. So I'm glad.
That's why I was so excited when I went back to the drill field. 2 years there with a company, I didn't have one divorce. Because I did everything I could to provide support. But the Marine Corps or the military in general could do a better service to those family members. Once they get married, or once they got married and they're in now and they're married, they should provide more classes, education of like what the life's about, what to expect on that journey. Every unit should have a book like, hey, they're going to go to the field a lot more. You're coming from this environment, from that last duty station. Well, this is what it's like here. And here's some spouses to connect with. Like, they're trying, but it's a lot of women behind the scenes creating things on their own, networks on their own. And they got the family readiness officers, and some are better than others, and DRCs, what they're called now. But I think it's still a struggle, and we could do better.
Now, you're part of the Marine Corps League, correct?
Yes. Recently took over for the Pete Hammer. He was the previous commandant for the Marine Corps League of the South Coast Detachment 22. And, when I got out, I didn't want anything to do with the military per se, like beyond like helping veterans find homes. But I had a big void in my life when I got out. I was just so used to communicating with a bunch of different Marines all the time on a daily, officers and whomever, family members, because of whatever. But as soon as I got out, all that stopped. It was just my wife and my team of realtors, right? And not that they couldn't fill that void. It was just something that I didn't know I was going to miss, or have that such a big gap. Doing something for so long, and then all of a sudden it just stops. It started to get tough. So then I was like, well, maybe I can be around some of these older guys, that have probably been through worse than I have, and found a way to persevere. So I met up with Chris Pacheco. We went to the American Legion down in San Juan Capistrano, and that was a great experience. And then one of the members was also a Marine Corps League member, Glenn Shignu, and he said, hey, our meeting for the Marine Corps League's tomorrow, you should come check it out. And we did, and that was almost a year ago. Been volunteering with them since. And then the previous commandant, Pete Hammer, said, hey, Nelson, you're the right guy at the right time. I'm 77 years old, and we need someone young and hungry, and I think you're just the right guy at the right time, and I need you to take over. And I didn't want to take over anything. I was just trying to run my own business and volunteer. But when someone like that presents something to you in that way, the only answer is yes. Like, aye, right?
Yeah, so, that's awesome.
Since taking it over, we're just trying to continue to serve our community, raise funds to serve active duty service members and their families, or families that are out of need, and I enjoy it tremendously. It fills that void, and honestly, I didn't think when I got out I'd be able to impact as many lives at one time that I was able to while I was in. But honestly, I'm able to influence and impact more lives being part of this organization than I was when I was in. We support multiple units, thousands of Marines, and it's amazing.
Yeah, damn, that's awesome. And you guys are located San Clemente area?
Yeah, we have our meetings on the third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Third Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay. Of
every month. And we meet at Elks Lodge from 1800 and a couple hours after.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a Tuesday. It's the third Tuesday.
Right. Well, right on, Nelson. Getting ready to cut the tape, man. Any last words?
If you're still wearing the uniform, I know there's days that you hate it, or it's just monotonous or whatever. I want you to think about two things. The time that you have in is very limited, and the amount of effort that you put into it, though you might not feel the impact, you're influencing someone else, you're supporting somewhere else, and you're making the institution better. So give it everything that you got. And then the second thing is, all of you will get out at some point. Don't forget about who you are and where you're going to go after the military. You can do things while you're in to help that transition out, whenever that is, to put you in a better situation for you and your family and your future success. And the third thing, never give up, keep fighting.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for being here, brother. Appreciate it.
Sweet. Thanks for having me, Josh.
Push it to the limit, I can't go no more. Red light, no way, I'm coming back home. Long dirt road, all on my own. I'ma be the greatest, write my name in the stone. Write my name in the stone. Yeah, I'm coming back.